There are people who live their entire lives moving forward physically, yet emotionally they never take a single step away from the past. They wake up in the present, but a part of their mind is still standing in a moment from years ago. Time passes, but the memory doesn't. New chapters begin, but the old chapter refuses to close. And the painful truth is that for many people, the past is not something they remember. The past is something they are still carrying. You can tell a person to move on, forget it, let go, stop thinking about it. But the human mind does not work like a switch. It is not a machine that responds to commands. It is a living history book of every emotion, every wound, every moment of love, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every memory that shaped the person they became. Letting go is not an act of logic. It is a transformation of the heart, the brain, and the nervous system. To understand why people get stuck, why some memories fade and others feel eternal, why some wounds close and others bleed for years, we must begin with the truth that the brain is not neutral. The brain is not a fair recorder of life. It is biased toward pain. It was designed for survival, not happiness. And because of this, the painful parts of life are remembered more vividly, more deeply, more intensely than the joyful ones. Neuroscience calls this the negativity bias. It explains why you can forget dozens of compliments, but remember one criticism forever. It explains why one heartbreak can overshadow years of love. It explains why a relationship that lasted 6 months can haunt you longer than a relationship that lasted 6 years. It explains why childhood wounds continue to echo in adulthood, even when you barely remember the details. The brain is wired to protect you by remembering danger. But emotional danger is coded the same way as physical danger. When someone hurts you emotionally, your brain responds as if you are under threat. This means the memory becomes imprinted like a survival lesson. Imagine touching a hot stove only once. You remember it forever. That is how the mind treats emotional pain. One betrayal, one abandonment, one moment of humiliation, one cruel sentence spoken at the wrong time. These things get burned into the nervous system because the brain assumes anything that hurts must be remembered to prevent future harm. But the brain is primitive. It cannot distinguish between physical survival and emotional survival. So it treats heartbreak like injury, rejection like attack, and loss like threat. The memory becomes a wound that refuses to fade because your mind believes remembering it will protect you. But emotional wounds are not like physical wounds. A physical wound heals when you stop touching it. An emotional wound often stays open because the mind keeps touching it, replaying the moment, reconstructing the past, imagining different outcomes, searching for answers, analyzing what went wrong, and trying to fix what cannot be changed. The more you replay a painful memory, the deeper it roots itself into the brain. This is why some people relive the same moment for years. They are not addicted to the pain. They are trapped in the loop created by their own survival instincts. Then there is trauma, the kind of emotional event that overwhelms the brain so intensely that it cannot process it normally. Trauma does not become a story. Trauma becomes fragments. A smell, a sound, a sensation, a moment of panic, a flash of memory. Trauma bypasses the narrative part of the brain and gets stored in the body. That is why trauma triggers feel physical. Your chest tightens, your stomach drops, your hands shake, your breathing changes. Trauma survivors are not remembering the past, they are reliving it. Even when the danger is long gone, the body reacts as if it is happening again. And until the body feels safe, the mind cannot let go. But trauma is not the only reason the past refuses to release its grip. Identity plays a powerful role. Humans build their sense of self based on their experiences. If you were hurt, you begin to see yourself as someone who gets hurt. If you were abandoned, you see yourself as someone who is easy to leave. If you were betrayed, you may begin to expect betrayal. If you were constantly criticized, you start to believe you are inadequate. These beliefs become internal truths. They shape decisions, relationships, and self-worth. The past becomes the lens through which you see yourself. You can grow, change, learn, evolve, but the identity built from past wounds can remain. An identity is hard to let go of, even when it hurts, because identity feels like safety. Even a painful identity feels more familiar than an uncertain future. The past also becomes a place of emotional attachment. People do not only hold on to painful chapters, they also hold on to beautiful ones. There are moments that felt alive, people who made your world brighter, dreams that filled your heart, versions of yourself that felt more open, more hopeful, more fearless. Sometimes what you miss is not the person or the event. What you miss is who you were during that time. And so you cling to the memory, not because you want to go back, but because you want that version of yourself back. Nostalgia edits the past. It takes the highlights and erases the shadows. It amplifies joy and silences discomfort. It creates a golden version of yesterday that feels better than today. And slowly, the past becomes a place you escape to when the present feels empty. Then comes regret, one of the strongest forces keeping people tied to what is gone. Regret creates imaginary timelines where everything worked out perfectly. A life where you didn't make that mistake. A life where you chose differently. A life where you held on instead of letting go, or where you let go instead of holding on. Regret makes you believe there was a better version of your life that you personally destroyed. And it punishes you with the belief that the best life is the life you never lived. Regret is a trap with no exit, because you cannot rewrite time, but your mind keeps trying. But regret is only one layer. Beneath regret lies something even more powerful: longing. Longing is the emotional gravity that pulls you back to the past even when you logically know it's gone. Longing isn't rational. It doesn't care about facts. It doesn't care about closure. It doesn't care about what was right or wrong. Longing is the mind's way of saying, there was something there, something meaningful, something irreplaceable, and I'm afraid I'll never feel that again. Whether it's a person, a time period, a version of yourself, or a life you imagined, longing makes the past feel alive. And as long as the past feels alive, the present feels incomplete. But people don't just long for what they had. Many people long for what they never received. The childhood affection they never got. The parental approval they always chased. The sense of safety that was missing. The emotional consistency that was never given. The love they had to earn instead of receiving freely. These unmet needs form emotional holes. And the past holds the last place where those needs felt close to being fulfilled. Even if the past was imperfect, even if it was painful, it might have contained a flicker of what the person always wanted. That flicker becomes the anchor. That flicker becomes the reason they can't let go. They're not holding on to the past. They're holding on to the emotional need that the past almost satisfied. And then there is the nervous system, the part of you that does not speak in words, but in reactions. When you experience something intense, your nervous system adjusts itself to survive. If you grew up in chaos, your body expects chaos. If you lived through abandonment, your body expects loss. If you lived through emotional conflict, your body expects danger. Your nervous system begins to mistake familiarity for safety. So even when the past was painful, it becomes familiar, and therefore, in a twisted way, it feels safe. This is why so many people repeat the same relationship patterns. They leave one toxic partner only to find themselves attracted to another who feels strangely similar. They say, I don't know why I keep choosing the same type of person. But the truth is that their nervous system is choosing familiarity over compatibility. This is why the past feels so powerful, because your body has been trained by it. You are not just remembering the past, you are physiologically wired by it. This wiring creates emotional habits. When the mind is unsure of the future, it returns to the past for reference. The past is predictable. The past is known. Even painful memories can feel like home to someone who has never experienced emotional safety. And until the nervous system learns a new pattern, the past will always pull stronger than the future. But emotional attachment to the past becomes even stronger when life falls apart in the present. When things go wrong, when dreams collapse, when relationships fail, when life becomes overwhelming, the past becomes a psychological refuge. A place where life felt simpler, safer, kinder. You start to compare the present with a romanticized version of yesterday. And of course the present feels worse, because the past has been edited by memory. Memory is not a camera. It does not record the truth. It records emotion, meaning, and interpretation. Your mind exaggerates certain parts and erases others. You think you remember the past accurately, but what you actually remember is the emotional narrative you built around it. When people say, "I miss the old days," they rarely miss the full reality. They miss the emotional perception. They miss the person they were, the dreams they carried, the innocence they had before life taught its hardest lessons. And then there is grief, the silent force that holds people captive. Grief is not just about death. Grief is about every type of loss. Losing a relationship, losing a dream, losing stability, losing a friendship, losing youth, losing opportunities, losing confidence, losing yourself. Every loss creates grief. And grief has no timeline. Some people move through grief in months. Others remain stuck for years, not because they want to be, but because the brain and heart cannot yet accept the loss. Acceptance is not logical. Acceptance is emotional. Acceptance requires the nervous system to adjust, and for some people, that takes a very long time. Grief becomes heavier when the loss has no closure. When someone disappears without explanation, the mind becomes trapped in a loop of unfinished questions. When a relationship ends without proper communication, the heart searches endlessly for answers. When a dream collapses suddenly, the mind tries to replay every decision to understand why. Unfinished endings are the hardest ones to release because the mind cannot file the memory away. The story remains open. The wound remains open. Many people are not stuck in the past. They are stuck in an unfinished conversation. They are stuck in a moment where they needed clarity, but never received it. They are stuck in a goodbye that never happened. They are stuck in a why that was never answered. They are stuck in a version of themselves who still doesn't understand what went wrong. And society does not help. Society glorifies moving on quickly. Society praises those who pretend to be fine. Society celebrates emotional numbness as strength. Society shames people who still care, who still feel, who still hurt, who still struggle with memories. We live in a world that tells you to delete photos, block people, bury feelings, distract yourself, stay busy, be strong, forget, pretend. But healing doesn't happen through pretending. Pretending gives the illusion of moving on, while the emotional wound grows deeper beneath the surface. This is why so many people feel stuck. They weren't allowed to heal. They were only taught to hide. Another powerful force that keeps people tied to the past is rumination. The repetitive, obsessive replaying of events. Rumination feels like problem solving, but it is actually emotional self-destruction. The more you ruminate, the more the memory strengthens itself in the brain. The more you replay the past, the more your mind becomes addicted to the emotional intensity. Rumination is the mind's attempt to rewrite the past, to rearrange the memory until it hurts less. But the past cannot be rearranged. It can only be understood, or it becomes a prison. Rumination also creates imagined conversations. You replay what you wish you said, what you wish they said, what you think you should have done, what you think they should have done. You create entire alternate realities in your mind, and those alternate realities become more emotionally powerful than the truth. You begin to feel pain for things that never even happened, imaginary outcomes, imaginary scenarios, imaginary endings. Rumination traps you not just in what was, but in what could have been. The past also becomes harder to release when your present lacks meaning. When your life lacks purpose, direction, or fulfillment, the past feels more significant by comparison. You look back because the future feels unclear. You cling to old memories because you haven't built new ones that matter. You replay old love because you haven't felt new love. You revisit old dreams because you stopped dreaming. You hold on to the past because it is the only part of your story that still feels real. The truth is, people do not stay stuck in the past because they are weak. They stay stuck because the past contains something emotionally unresolved. Pain that wasn't healed, love that wasn't fulfilled, identity that wasn't rebuilt, grief that wasn't processed, questions that weren't answered, inner children that weren't comforted, nervous systems that weren't reset, stories that weren't rewritten. Letting go is not an act of will. Letting go is an act of healing. And healing is a long, slow, messy human process. Healing becomes even more difficult when childhood enters the picture, because childhood is not just a chapter of life, it is the blueprint. The emotional patterns formed in childhood become the patterns repeated in adulthood, even without awareness. A child who grows up with inconsistent love learns to cling. A child who grows up with emotional distance learns to detach. A child who grows up in chaos learns to anticipate danger. A child who grows up in silence learns not to speak their needs. And these patterns don't simply fade when one becomes an adult. They become the template for how a person handles relationships, conflict, love, loss, and memories. If love was something you had to earn in childhood, you will chase it in adulthood, even when it hurts you. If love was unpredictable, you will cling to it even when it breaks you. If love was absent, you will fear it when it finally arrives. Childhood creates emotional reflexes, and these reflexes often keep a person glued to the past because the past holds the emotional experience their nervous system is familiar with. Even when the past was painful, the pain feels safer than an unknown future. This is why people often repeat the same relationships with different people. They say things like, "Why do I keep choosing the same type of person?" Or, "Why does this pattern keep happening to me?" They believe it is bad luck or destiny, but it's neither. It is the nervous system seeking what it recognizes. The past has programmed the emotional comfort zone. And until awareness is built, a person will continue living the past inside every new relationship. But being stuck in the past doesn't only come from relationships. It also comes from identity. Humans form identity from experiences, emotions, and interpretations. If you spent years believing you weren't enough, that belief becomes your truth. If you defined yourself by your success, a failure feels like losing yourself. If you defined yourself through someone else, a partner, a parent, a friend, losing them feels like losing your entire identity. This is why people often say, "I don't know who I am anymore," after a painful ending. The past held their identity. The future feels like an empty page. And an empty page is terrifying for someone who has spent years writing their story around another person or another chapter. Identity built from pain is tricky. It hurts, but it also feels familiar. The mind clings to familiarity, even when it's destructive. A person who believes they're unlovable will unconsciously recreate situations that confirm that belief. A person who believes they don't deserve happiness will sabotage opportunities for joy. A person who believes they are destined for abandonment will push away the people who try to stay. The past becomes the script, and the person becomes the actor, repeating the same role endlessly. But the mind doesn't only hold on to pain, it holds on to meaning. The deepest reason people cannot let go of the past is because the past contained meaning. A relationship that broke you might also have been the first time you felt seen. A childhood home filled with conflict might also have been the place where you learned resilience. A person who hurt you might also have given you moments of comfort during a time you desperately needed it. A chapter that ended in heartbreak might also have been the chapter where you discovered passion, connection, or vulnerability. The past is rarely black and white. It is layered, complex, emotional. And letting go feels like erasing the meaning along with the memory. People fear that releasing the past means saying, "It didn't matter." But it did matter. That's why it hurts. And that's why letting go feels like a betrayal of the person you once were and the feelings you once felt. People also stay stuck because the mind confuses intensity with importance. Moments of emotional intensity, love, grief, passion, heartbreak, fear, excitement, imprint themselves on the brain more deeply than ordinary moments. These moments feel bigger, louder, more significant. They overshadow quieter memories. The mind decides that anything emotionally intense must be important. So it keeps returning to those moments, searching for understanding, closure, or a different outcome. This is why the most emotionally charged memories refuse to fade. And then there is the illusion of control. The mind believes that by replaying the past, it can change it. If you think about it enough, maybe the meaning will shift. If you analyze your mistakes enough, maybe the wound will heal. If you keep revisiting the moment they left, maybe you'll finally understand why. Rumination is the mind's attempt to control what cannot be controlled. It gives the illusion of action, but it is emotional quicksand. The more you engage in it, the more stuck you become. But rumination is also fueled by the longing for closure. Closure is one of the most misunderstood emotional needs. People believe closure comes from answers, from conversations, explanations, apologies, understanding. But closure is not something another person gives you. Closure is something you give yourself. It is the decision to end the emotional chapter, even when the story doesn't have a satisfying conclusion. Many people stay stuck in the past because they have been waiting for closure from someone who cannot provide it. Perhaps the person is gone. Perhaps the person refuses to take responsibility. Perhaps the conversation will never happen. Perhaps the truth will never be known. And because the mind waits for the world to bring closure, the heart never stops hoping for a resolution that may never arrive. The past also stays alive because the emotional wound was never validated. When pain is dismissed by family, by society, by the person who caused it, it festers. People say things like, "It wasn't that bad. You should be over it. Other people have it worse. Just forget it. Move on already." But emotional pain that is invalidated becomes internalized. It becomes shame. You start to believe you're wrong for hurting. You start to hide your emotions. You start to pretend you're fine. But unacknowledged pain does not disappear. It grows stronger in the shadows. And then there is fear. The fear that if you let go of the past, you will have nothing left. Some people hold on to memories because they are the only place where they ever felt deeply connected. Some hold on to pain because they fear they will never experience love again. Some hold on to old identities because the new one is unclear. Some hold on to relationships because they believe they will not survive the loss. Letting go feels like stepping into emptiness, into uncertainty, into the unknown. And the brain hates uncertainty. The mind is a prediction machine. It feels safe when it can predict outcomes. The past is predictable. The future is not. So the mind holds on to what it knows, even when it hurts. People also stay stuck because healing requires confronting emotions they spent their whole lives avoiding. Healing requires vulnerability. It requires sitting with sadness instead of distracting yourself from it. It requires acknowledging wounds you have ignored. It requires grieving losses you minimized. It requires admitting that something broke inside you. And many people fear that if they open the door to their emotions, the pain will consume them. But emotions don't drown you. Suppressing them does. The more you suppress, the deeper the emotional reservoir becomes. And the deeper it becomes, the stronger the pull of the past. Another powerful reason people can't let go is because the past shaped their beliefs about the world. If the world hurt you, you believe it is dangerous. If people betrayed you, you believe everyone will. If relationships ended painfully, you believe love leads to pain. These beliefs become invisible walls that prevent new experiences from taking root. The past becomes a filter that colors every future event. You no longer see the world as it is. You see it as it once was. This is why even the happiest present moment can be overshadowed by past fears. You fear losing what you love. You fear repeating mistakes. You fear failing again. You fear getting attached. You fear opening your heart. You fear being vulnerable. The past becomes not a memory, but a forecast, leaving you trapped in a cycle where tomorrow looks like yesterday, not because it is, but because your mind is still projecting the past onto the future. And with every repetition, the past becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But as powerful as the past is, as dominant as its presence can feel, there is something even more powerful: the possibility of healing. Healing is not forgetting what happened. Healing is not pretending it didn't matter. Healing is not forcing yourself to move on. Healing is the process of teaching your mind and body that the danger is over, that the story is complete, that the emotion has been felt, that the lesson has been learned, and that the future does not have to look like the past. Healing begins the moment you allow yourself to understand why you held on for so long. Only then can you begin the slow, gentle process of untangling the emotional knots. Healing begins when you finally allow yourself to understand your pain instead of judging it, to understand your reactions instead of shaming them, to understand your patterns instead of hating yourself for repeating them. Healing begins when you realize you weren't weak, you were wounded. You weren't broken, you were overwhelmed. You weren't stuck, you were still trying to survive something your heart didn't know how to release. The mind clings to the past because it is waiting for comfort, for validation, for acknowledgement. And healing is the act of giving yourself what you were waiting to receive from others. The apology you never got, the closure you never heard, the love you never received, the support no one gave you, the understanding that was denied. Healing is giving those things to yourself because you deserve them. The identity built from pain. But pain is not identity, it is experience. Trauma is not identity, it is memory. Regret is not identity, it is emotion. Loneliness is not identity, it is circumstance. The past shaped you, but it is not you. You are the person who walked through the fire, not the fire itself. Many people cannot let go of the past because they have never experienced the version of themselves who is healed. That version feels like a stranger. The healed version is confident, calm, grounded, open, trusting, self-respecting, self-loving. The healed version sets boundaries. The healed version believes they deserve good things. The healed version is not afraid of love. The healed version does not chase unavailable people. The healed version does not cling to old memories. The healed version does not replay what cannot be changed. The healed version honors the past but does not live in it. People fear healing because they fear losing the identity built from pain. But pain is not identity, it is experience. Trauma is not identity, it is memory. Regret is not identity, it is emotion. Loneliness is not identity, it is circumstance. The past shaped you, but it is not you. You are the person who walked through the fire, not the fire itself. Healing also requires a new relationship with fear. The brain hates uncertainty, so it clings to the past for comfort. But healing requires stepping into the unknown future, the unknown identity, the unknown emotional world. You have to teach your nervous system that uncertainty is not danger, that unfamiliar is not unsafe, that new beginnings are not threats. Healing requires expanding your emotional range. It requires learning how to feel without panicking. It requires soothing your body when it reacts to old triggers. It requires challenging the belief that you are destined to repeat the same cycles. Healing is not a linear path. Some days you will feel free. Some days you will feel pulled back into memories. Some days you will question if progress is possible. Some days you will feel like you are back at the beginning. But the truth is that every time you face the emotion instead of running from it, you move one step closer to freedom. Every time you choose the present over the past, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you speak kindly to yourself, you weaken the story that was built from your wounds. The past does not release its hold all at once. It releases piece by piece. The moment you outgrow an identity, the moment you stop chasing a memory, the moment you forgive yourself for something you did not know then, the moment you realize you cannot change the past, but you can change who you become because of it. Letting go happens quietly. One day you notice that a memory does not hurt as deeply. One day you realize you are not angry anymore. One day the person who once broke you no longer has emotional power. One day you remember the past without reliving it. One day you wake up and realize your future finally feels possible. Healing is not about erasing the past. It is about rewriting the meaning of it. The memory remains, but the pain transforms. The fear dissolves. The identity shifts. The story changes. The scar stays, but the wound closes. And in that closing, you discover the most important truth. The past cannot harm the version of you who has healed from it. You realize the love you lost taught you the love you deserve. The mistakes you made taught you wisdom. The betrayal taught you boundaries. The heartbreak taught you resilience. The failures taught you direction. The trauma taught you your strength. The grief taught you gratitude. The darkness taught you what light means. When healing begins, the past becomes a teacher instead of a prison, a chapter instead of a cage, a memory instead of a burden. You don't erase it, you integrate it. You don't deny it, you understand it. You don't fear it, you learn from it. The power the past once held is reclaimed by the future you build. And that future becomes the space where new chapters begin. Chapters that don't repeat old patterns. Chapters where love doesn't feel like fear. Chapters where connection doesn't feel like danger. Chapters where you don't measure yourself by who left or who stayed. Chapters where you are no longer shaped by wounds, but by wisdom. The past will always exist, but healing teaches you how to exist beyond it. You learn that you can visit the past without living in it. You can remember without returning. You can reflect without drowning. You can honor the version of yourself who survived, without allowing that version to control who you become. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is the ultimate act of compassion, the moment you tell yourself, you deserve peace more than you deserve answers. You deserve freedom more than you deserve closure. You deserve a future that is not chained to your history. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. And the moment you understand this is the moment the past finally loses its power.